What is going on, everybody? Welcome to Artists Like Us. Happy New Year. By the way, we made it. Finally, starting up some new episodes here for you guys. Soon I'll be back in person here for some future episodes, but wanted to make sure to take the opportunity to have this special guest here with me here, and I think you're gonna be definitely. This is definitely a big treat for you guys. I had the pleasure of briefly sharing a space of playing some music at a studio, meeting this artist, but incredibly talented, and I'm excited for him to share his journey. James Calvin, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good, brother. How you feeling?
I'm all right. I'm all right. I'm still getting ready for the new year here. I think we have 2 more days until we have to stop saying Happy New Year.
Right. I don't. So after the first, week or so after Dr. King, day, we
Right.
ain't saying there's no more.
Yeah.
We in the year. We in the
We in
year.
it. That's right. We hit it. That's it. Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Exactly, man. Exactly. Yeah, man. So it's funny. I kind of went before we kind of start. I remember the first time that I met you. I was in the Knockout Studios because Brian Guthrie, he was a good friend of Ralph, who's one of the co-partners of Knockout Studios. During that time, and invited me out to LA. I was in Long Beach at the time, and just like, oh yeah, it's be a good space, and they're having those Wednesdays, those Wednesdays where just artists would just come in, jam for a little bit in the music studio, and people just hop in, hop out, and just all types of different people would come in, and Brian was giving me just like, hey, you should come, man. Like, you should check it out, and because I've played music from for a little bit, and I was like, all right, I'll try to do it. So took some time to drive down to LA, and had a couple of fun jam sessions, and one of them I remember, you were able to step in a little bit, play kind of just play some music with everybody, and I was
hmm
able to just kind of witness just playing, doing some fun improv stuff with you, and I remember even I'm gonna say his name is Enrique, talented bass player. He was he
Yeah.
was like,
Enrique
ladies and gentlemen,
Duarte.
James Calvin. You were doing your thing, and I was like,
hmm
yo, this guy
That's
is
my guy.
yeah, yeah,
Shout out Enrique Duarte.
yeah. Shout out Enrique, definitely. Um, but yeah, I just remember that being a really fun experience, and then just like, dang, this guy's a real deal.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
was a pleasure sharing this space with you guys as well.
Oh, yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, man. So, I always love the origin story. So, going way back, just kind of from the beginning, tell me a little bit as far as growing up. Did you grow up in kind of a musical household? What was that like for you?
I honestly didn't grow up in a musical household. My parents didn't really listen to, much music like that. It was more of I was a video gamer. Like, I played video games a ton, and I really needed a way to get away from it. And for whatever reason, I got on YouTube, I believe, and I saw some. I don't know who the pianist was, but they were doing something truly amazing. And I told myself, I said, if I can do this, I can do anything. And that was pretty much how it really started as far as playing the piano goes. This was 2006, around summer, fall 2006. I was just like, I need to get away from video games. What can I do to challenge myself? And piano seemed like the hardest thing to do at the time. So that's when I picked it up. So this will be year 19.
Wow, you're 19. Wow. So when it came to, watching, whoever you watched as far as playing piano and whatnot, um, what was kind of from that moment on, like, did you like tell like your mom or your parents was like, hey, like, I think I want to start learning this instrument. Like, was that conversation ever something that happened after, kind of witnessing that, just kind of like, hey, I want to start doing this. What was the reaction?
Yeah, I believe it was very, very brief. Like, my dad kind of tells the story a little different, but I'm pretty sure I went up to him, that day after I broke my PlayStation 2. It was totally by accident, but I did break my PlayStation 2 because I was very upset that the game was cheating. Yeah, and I just went up to him. I might have expressed that I wanted a piano, and he's very good at hiding gifts in the house. We didn't have a big house, so I don't know how he hid that piano from me for that long. But yeah, Christmas rolled around, and he brought the piano from downstairs in the basement. It was like a Casio WK 3200 or something like that. A very beginner keyboard, very plastic. It plays songs for you as the melodies and things like that. So yeah, the conversation was had, and then here we are.
Yeah, very cool. Wow. Now, I mean, I would imagine too, from even just for like when I remember when I first, was like, hey man, I really want to learn, guitar. And then like once you get a guitar, you're just like, okay, now like it's almost like there becomes like an overwhelming sentiment as far as like how do we even start this? There's so many people that learn that that can teach this a different way. Like, how did you go about learning the piano? Because obviously there's like a million different ways that you can. What was your journey when it came to that?
Well, first and foremost, shout out to YouTube University. I mean, it's such an amazing resource. I think, if I'm not mistaken, one of the very first song, probably the very first song I learned how to play was "Say Goodbye" by Chris Brown. I believe he had just come out with his first album, his debut album, the year before, and so yeah, I was heavy into R&B, and I always wanted to be a poet. I love to talk to girls, but I never really had the words to say. So playing piano really made that easy. So as far as getting lessons are concerned, I just got on YouTube. I said, I looked up how to play the songs, and then over time you actually learn what the notes mean and how to actually use them, and then like your ear starts to pop. Like I remember one of the first time my ear popped, I played like a F sharp flat nine or something like that. And I was like, there's so much tension in this chord, it doesn't make any sense. But it actually does make musical sense. Your ear just has to get adjusted to that sound. And but yeah, long story short, YouTube University. I've never had any formal lessons. I got on there and never got off.
Wow, that's pretty incredible, man. Wow. So like even when it comes to because I remember I had when I had a couple of musical courses whatever for like during junior college, and one of my teachers, he's mainly a bass player, read music and played upright bass mainly, but he had kind of a piano course too, but he always talked about how as far as from a texture standpoint, and then from as far as like articulation and playing, how there's a specific there's a certain touch that kind of happens when you're a kid, when you're younger playing, and then versus being older playing, and then having that technique, when it comes to those
Hmm.
things. And that was kind of stuck with me. Then I thought, damn, I learned the wrong instrument. Growing up. But for yourself, as far as like practicing scales, was that something where it's just was there difficult in that, or did you kind of find your way, just really zoned in on these YouTube videos?
um, I would say that there was a lot of difficulty as far as like maybe like hand positions, like maybe really later on in life I learned what the Hanon like scales are, or like just the Hanon fingering. Some a lot of times, oftentimes when you grow up in gospel, you kind of just find your way, or you find whatever fingering works best for you. But over time, I feel like I've gotten it right as far as my, like arpeggiation goes. The proper fingering goes for running up and down the scale with just fluidity. One of my biggest inspiration as far as getting fingering and arpeggiation done correctly was Cornell Gaskin. Rest in peace to Cornell Gaskin. He's one of the most amazing piano players and organ players I've ever come across on YouTube. I actually had the pleasure of meeting him in person in 2015, and he spoke some words over my life, and so that was a blessing to me. But he's definitely been a major inspiration to me because he's just so fluid with his hands, and so yeah, there was some difficulty, but you just have to practice. A lot of musicians, they reach a certain level, and they reach a certain level of understanding, and they think they got it, and you really don't. There's you don't want to peak, and I do not want to peak. I'm 34 years young. I've been playing since I was 16 years old, and I don't see myself peaking anytime soon because I'm always willing to learn. I'm always willing to ask the questions that'll get me to the next level.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Yeah, I think practice. It's funny hearing practice. I guess for someone who isn't as seasoned, as yourself, some people think that practice is just like, oh no, that's just when I'm starting to learn it. Then when I learn it, I can stop practicing anymore. It's like, no, no, this is a life thing. You have to
Now's the
always
time to rev it
practice.
up because you have
Exactly.
a higher level of understanding. You want to really 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 dive in and get that muscle memory correct. There's so many like subtle like nuanced things that you can learn. Um, while you're practicing, your ear is going to continue to pop, and your muscles they're gonna memorize these motions and things like that. And yeah, it just opens up your ear to a lot of different things, especially when you listen to different genres, different time signatures. All these things play a role in how you embody music itself.
Yeah. Did you have any moments where like there's a song that you knew for the longest time before you really dove into piano? Then when you dove into it, you're like, damn, I didn't know that was in 3/4. Like, did that ever happen
Oh,
to you?
you probably is in a spot or two. Because speaking of time signatures, when I went to my first year in college, one of the first classes that they had us take was meter. And dude, I walked in there and these kids are just clapping. I'm like, what the hell? I thought I came in a music class. Why are you young men and women clapping in here? And for the life of me, even to this, I mean, I can read okay, but for sure, having to read those quarter notes, those half notes, and these ties, and this half rest and this quarter rest irks my soul to this day.
Yeah.
But what I do know about that is, I came into college not having any musical background. A lot of those kids, they had already taken high school music or like maybe middle school and stuff like that. So they had an understanding. Nobody, I don't think anybody in that classroom was fresh as I was. And but yeah, that clapping, I was like one ear and a two ear and a three, four. Listen, to this day, it irks my soul. To this day, it irks my soul.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, man. Yeah, it's so interesting, but it's funny too because it's almost like in hindsight, it almost like it never left, right? So it's almost like it did help, but it was just like the gruelingness of that was just like that was not the most fun part of.
But reading, I will say to young musicians and old musicians, reading really truly does help because let's say that there's like a I don't know a jazz line or something like that, and it's already been transcribed. Well, all you have to do is be able to read the timing of this and get it under your fingers, and boom, like you're playing a Herbie Hancock lick or a Chick Corea lick or Oscar Peter Oscar Peterson, who's another one of my favorites, or Art Tatum lick, and because you can read it, it's like that. It almost opens up your ear, you know, that much faster versus not being able to read, having sharp possible to transcribe that. So I will say that um, I'm very happy where I'm at as far as my ear goes, but I have a long way to go as far as my reading goes, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember being fascinated with one of the sessions in that piano class that I was in, where this guy was he was the upright bass player Daniel Reesener. He was doing some type of a like classic jazz tune or whatever, and he's just playing it so fluidly. And then I was like, "Have you seen this music before?" He's like, "Oh no." So just
Mm,
like it's like I always found that fascinating as far as like it's one thing where it's like, okay, I've heard of this song before. I haven't read it yet, but at least I kind of sonically have an idea. But to get some piece of music that you've never heard before, but you're able to sight read so well, like that's like just like a different universe to me. I'm like,
hmm.
holy crap, that is insane. That is
Yeah.
insane. So as far as when you did learn, you're learning piano, were you did you get to the point as far as like playing in the choir or anything like that? So kind of what happened when it came to you got the piano, you're in the shed as they say, you're shedding, you're doing your thing. Did you what was the next thing after that for you? Did you kind of volunteer doing like some piano work at the choir, or kind of what was that next step for you?
So yeah, so from 2006 to 2008 or something like that, was my time to really, really, really shed and kind of like learn some things. And I think 2009, when I came back from Europe, was the first time my church had ever heard me play. And I remember my good friend Jaquan, he came up to me after service. He said, "Dude, when did you learn to do that?" So I hadn't been like hoarding my. I was playing drums. Drums was my first instrument, so I've been playing that since I was 12 years old. And so I had only been playing drums in the church, and then when I went away to school, I kind of just kept that piano part to myself. And then when I came back from Europe, my mother sent me on a trip to Europe. I brought the piano to church, um, and yeah, that was the first time that they witnessed me playing piano at the church. So that was around 2009, around fall 2009, I want to say.
Wow, that's great. And man, it's so. I think it. I mean, I would imagine that starting with drums first and then going to piano. I feel like they say that like those should be the first two things if you're learning music in general, just because when it comes to obviously drums, timing and and all those things like as obviously some of the most important things. And then when it comes to piano, it's like it's the one instrument where you can literally see the music in front of you as far as the tonally really identifying chords very easily, obviously outside of the advancedness, but as far as just kind of picking it up, I mean, definitely those first two instruments picking it up, I would imagine like at least it kind of helped provide a pretty solid foundation. Do you
For
feel like the
sure.
drums helped you with the piano notion?
Um, just I think so. Like
Mm.
as far as timing goes, like I think it's called like syncopation. Like you can like it's just like your timing of it, your touch, because it's a very percussive instrument, itself. I think pianos have like mallets or whatever like that. Like you have to strike it, a certain way to get a certain tone. The yeah, you know, you have to strike it at a certain velocity if you want it softer, more mellow tone versus a more aggressive tone like that. And then, like doing your runs, how you want to hit and do your runs. If you want to delay a run, you kind of think you just have a different type of timing going on in your head when you've played drums already.
Definitely, definitely. And then you're playing the choir, doing the piano thing. Was that ever like a kind of like a competitive thing? Because I know obviously like one of the beauties of just like playing in the church, gospel or whatever the case may be, is that obviously there's so many amazing musicians that came from that, and then also a lot of those musicians they have different when it comes to just their skills, being that could potentially be adaptable to like jazz cats or what have you. But also
Mhm.
one of the other notions is kind of getting used to the competitive space, where I remember talking to Charlie Burrell where he's talking in the church. He's like, hey, if you mess up, someone's gonna replace you. So I was like,
Mhm.
hey, I'll take the drums if you can't play. Did you ever experience any type of like some competitiveness when you were playing in the church?
Man, fortunately and unfortunately. I remember when I was playing drums as a preteen and as a teenager. I was still learning. I was getting good. I was getting good. I was getting good. But when it came down to like, let's say church conferences or maybe like choir concerts or something like that, maybe like we went out of town or something like that. They would call in a different drummer from another church that I was familiar with, and I didn't really care for it. I'll be honest and say I didn't really care for it. I was always amicable and um, oh, I got over it. But for sure, I don't know if it was a competition or competitive, but but I understood it. I understood it that I didn't have the sound that was needed in that time. I didn't have the skill set that was needed at that time. And so calling somebody else in to, play this groove or whatever like that, um, was understandable for me, even as a teenager. But it just pushed me to be better, and not necessarily better than him, but to just be better for myself. Um, so yeah, there was definitely a time where I felt challenged. There was quote unquote, competition around me, and but I can honestly say that has made me a better player and better musician and a better leader.
Definitely, definitely. When did doing gigs in LA? When did that originally? I know we were talking a little bit offline here. But when did that start for you? As far as playing gigs in LA.
I want to say my one of my first gigs might have happened February 2021.
Hmm.
I got to LA November 7th, 2020, right during the pandemic, and some way somehow someone got wind of me playing, and it was a young female artist, R&B artist, pop artist, and she wanted to do like a video shoot, and so I went in there. I arranged the music for her for like a live show. So this was February 2021. I believe that was my first gig in LA. It was like a video shoot, kind of like a Vivo. I think that's what it's called, Vivo, where the artists, they shoot with like an all white or a different color backdrop.
Oh, okay.
Uh, yeah, so I believe that was my first gig in LA. Just arrange some music and play live on the video for her.
Yeah, yeah, man. Talk to me as far as just I guess just any kind of takeaways that you have when it comes to gigging in LA, because obviously, like in 2025, it's one of those things where it's like you really got to have the hustle, and not every gig will be the most lucrative thing, right? It's just really just kind of like stacking your chips, hustling, and I think for someone who might be, say, someone who's, they want to do it, but they don't know, they haven't done it before, I could see it being a very, just grueling thing or intimidating, I guess is the word. So
Right.
kind of tell me a little bit as far as just any type of like lessons that you've learned for yourself as you're doing that, just when it comes to just kind of people listening.
I mean, well, the top two or three things would be keep your name clean, um, stay out of trouble, do business the right way, don't cheat anybody, don't, uh, have anybody's name kind of like running their name through the mud or no gossiping. Just keep your name clean, keep your name out of stuff. I would say networking would be my number one.
Yeah.
Um, Networking would definitely be number one. Just go out there. If you've got the skills, somebody's going to see you. They're going to hear you, whether they're intimidated by you or they want to embrace you. Go out there and network. And yeah, I think those are the top two. There's not even three. I think network, being present, making your presence felt, is number one because people got two options: embrace you or reject you. And the only people that you really need to worry about are the ones that are embracing you. Everybody else is just noise. They're ultimately irrelevant. They're not putting any money in your pocket, and they're not edifying your spirit in any way, shape, or form. Worry about those who embrace you and are trying to move the needle in your favor. And then the other part is, yeah, keep a good name because you just never know. People. One of the most important things is it's not just who knows you, but it's who's willing to mention your name when you're not around in a good light, in a good light, So have those people around you that are willing to, oh yeah, call James. Oh yeah, call James. Oh yeah, he's cool people. Oh, he's solid. He's this, that, and the third. Um, give them nothing but good things to say about you. People are gonna find negative things to say about you for sure, because that's just their that's just their way.
Yeah.
But you do your very best to give people every reason to call you.
Yeah.
And
That
those are my
makes
two nuggets.
yeah. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of yeah, that definitely makes a lot of sense there. Yeah, cuz one thing too, like I always felt like even just doing when I did do some gigs in LA, there's a lot of opportunities where it was like there's just a lot of learning lessons, as far as just like, oh, like this one, just as far as just like how just when it comes to just working with a bunch of other artists that maybe I haven't played with before, and you kind of fill in the space on how different people react musically, and then just learning, you might be learning some stuff like less than 24 hours before the gig,
Right.
things like
There's
that.
always a
So
last minute switch up. Yep.
right, right. I remember having a conversation on my guitar podcast where one of the guys, he played at the Super Bowl one time, a great artist, but he was saying like, he's like, the best ability is availability. It was like, be
That's
available.
one of them because
Yeah,
there's always a lot of cats I mean, they're available for a reason, you know.
yeah.
So if they too available, you're like, why ain't nobody calling you? But nah. All jokes aside, no, yeah, definitely being available and timely, being on time, is something that a lot of musicians can. They should practice. They should always take pride in showing up, in their best form, you know. So that's another thing is being on time because too many times I'm like, why are y'all running late? Why?
Right, right,
Why?
right.
Ain't nothing happened on the highway. We both got on the 110. What happened?
Yeah. If I don't do that, that was a smooth experience on the freeway.
Right. What accident? I passed the same exit you passed.
No, I 100% agree, man. Punctuality goes a long way. Then also just kind of shows that you can be a reliable person to contact. That was one thing. It was like, I got to make it to this thing. Can't be late. That's not, I don't even like being late anything something that I don't want to do, that I don't get paid for. It's like that punctuality. Yeah, it goes a long way. Goes a
Hmm.
long
And
ways.
one other thing, um, you know, is in LA, people, like I said, people are going to embrace you, and some of them they're gonna throw shade, and they're not going to embrace you. But try your best to be sure of yourself. Be fully content and sure that your skills translate to this room. That um, that you're moving the needle in a positive way, or you're bringing the right energy to the room. Because some people, no matter what you do, they will not embrace you. It doesn't matter how friendly you are, how skilled you are, or any of those things. There are cliques, in probably every city, or every group of musicians, and you have to be okay with not being a part of that clique. No matter if you shook their hands once. Sometimes in LA, you can meet people 3 and 4 times. It's like, I've already met you, I already know your name. We actually played a gig together. Why are you acting brand new?
Mm.
And you have to be so sure of yourself, cool, calm, and collected, not to let those types of people uh, move you. You understand? You need to be like a root and not like a branch. You need to be unmoved by a lot of people's behavior and their characteristics. Because things like that do happen. Whether you're new in LA or you're a veteran in the city or you're familiar with the city, you just got to be sure of yourself and just keep being solid. One thing somebody told me was, um, as much as solid people hate sucker ass people hate solid people. You know,
Ah,
so yeah, when you feel like you're not clicking with somebody, there's a reason for it.
yeah.
That you don't need to force the chemistry. You don't need to, force the action. Just you're not my person. You're talented. You're gifted, but you're not for me.
Right,
You're my peer. You're not my friend.
right.
And
That's great advice.
remember that. I think I posted something sometime last year. I was like, I was trying to tell musicians like, we're stronger together than we are apart. The majority of us are peers. We're not friends. And I forgot what the third thing was, but that's a real thing. You bump into these people all the time. You see them, you know their name, you shake their hand. Sometimes you may not. Some next time they might not even shake your hand, or they may not. They may act like they don't see you. So
Right.
remember, you guys play the same instrument. You're not brothers. You're not blood. You're not any of those things. You just do the same thing, you know.
Right.
And sometimes you just got to leave it there. We both play keyboards. Congratulations.
That's real. That's real shit. No, yeah,
Mhm.
definitely, definitely. Um, can you talk about maybe one of your favorite encounters that you've of gigs that you've done? Because I've seen pictures of you in rooms with some. I mean, not to gloat or anything, but it's just it's a moment. It's a moment in time. It's an important moment to
Mhm.
remember. I've seen you in a room with Eric Walls, if I'm not mistaken. I'm like,
Yeah.
it's like one of the greatest guitar players in the world. Like
Right.
I've seen you have a picture of Lauryn Hill. I mean, tell me a little bit as far as just any gigs or moments where you're like, I'm always going to remember that. That was a real special experience.
Okay, so I think one of the earliest ones was I think it was like 2021, 2022. It's when I first met Robert Turner, who's a LA native. I met him at Sofitel Jazz Night. And I think the year before the movie Soul came out with Jamie Foxx, he was the middle school band teacher or something like that. And he
Yeah,
like zoned out, just zoned out playing like his jazz and musical thing. And I think the one of the first times I saw Robert Turner, he was just out of this world, man. He was just
yeah,
on a whole nother level. This I think it was about 3 years ago when I first met him. A whole nother level musical than I was, and he just was so fluid and so zoned out. And if anybody knows, Robert shake his head like this, he just get to zoning out. I love that moment. Um, there was a moment where my birthday is when 2 years ago was when I met Lauryn Hill, Proswell, and my friend Lee Mo. She took me to the Lauryn Hill concert, and I think they were all talking like, "Oh, do you want to meet her and do like a meet and greet?" And I was like, "Hell yeah!" So I waited a little bit. It took a little while to get to the meet and greet,
yeah.
but I was able to meet her. I met one of her daughters. I met some members of the band. So that was really dope. I think the picture you saw me in with Eric Walls, um, Wayne Lindsey, who's a very notable pianist
Mm,
out here in LA. I think he's originally from DC. Um, he used to do a session called "A Player's Gotta Play," and I used to play at his church with Sandra Crouch. In 2001, for about 3 or 4 months, I played at Sandra Crouch's church up in Pacoima, I believe it is. And so me and Wayne Lindsay had built a relationship, over that time, over the years, kept in touch with him, and I always told him I was going to pull up. And so that day, he set up some keyboards for me, and I believe it was me, Wayne Lindsay, Eric Walls, Brandon Brown, and I can't remember who else was on stage with us, but some other notable like singers, um, and yeah, that was a good time. But another time was when I got to go to Sandra Crouch's home, and she invited me over to work on some music with her. She wanted to, I think it was like 2 or 3 records that I demoed for her in the year 2021. So that was definitely a highlight for me at that time. I was only less than a year into LA, and if those who don't know, Sandra Crouch is the twin sister of Andre Crouch, one of the most notable, prolific gospel songwriters in all of the world has ever known.
wow.
So just being able to play at her church for that short amount of time really pushed me because they're very serious about their music at that church. Um, and she's very serious about the sound that she wants. Like she's very, very much involved in every process of like, the recording, the voicings that you playing. You can be talented, but she very much knew what she wanted to hear. May she rest in peace.
Right.
But yeah, she invited me to her home uh, at least 2 times, and worked on some music with her. And then she even put me on the phone with, I believe it was her nephew. It was Keith Crouch. He's another producer. Um, and yeah, that was a very, very notable moment. I got to hold Andre Crouch's Grammy at the time. I
Oh
don't think she
wow.
knew. But yeah, I sat at his piano in their like foyer area, and I held his Grammy, and she took care of me, and definitely was a pleasant experience working with the late Sandra Crouch.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. Now I know obviously you are also, producer and, write music and whatnot. When did you start throughout all of this? When did you start doing that?
Oh well, production. Oh, that was honestly production is where my heart is, man.
Hmm.
Um, when I first, when I first started like playing drums when I was like 12, like in like 2002. I had always been a ladies' man. Always been trying to find a way to get to girls and yada 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 yada. So I would start writing poetry, and but I always wanted to turn that poetry into song. So I started playing piano in 2006. That kind of made it easier for me to like make songs or like write down songs, but I didn't know how to record them. So in 2009 is when I really got my start as far as, learning how to use Logic and things like that and Reason and things like that. Shout out to my boy Travis Taylor, who's an LA native as well. I met him in New York, and he would take me down to the Pro Tools lab at School of Visual Arts on 23rd Street in Manhattan, and we would spend countless hours in there. He would record all of my ideas, and we would write and just collaborate on different things. And we became great friends over the years. We're still friends to this day. Um, and so that's kind of how like my production started. Um, Fast forward 15 more years, what I'm doing now, definitely trying to get into a lot of sync licensing, um, producing for producing and songwriting for artists, demoing records for them. I'm not the greatest singer in the world, but throw a little auto tune on there, a little reverb, and I'll get you where you need to be. Um, as recent as last year, I had the pleasure of working on a podcast hosted and created by Tierra Me Malloy. I do the mixing and the post production for her podcast. So basically, she will
Wow.
have an interview. She'll have an interview with one of her friends or peers, and at the very end of the episode, she'll have a live performance of her original music. So you'll see me and Aisha, who's the drummer, who's a drummer who I was in her band for a little while. Um, we're in the videos together, and we do the live performance. But afterwards, I go home and I get in my bag. So I'm on my, I'm starting adding strings, I'm adding bass lines, I'm adding 808s, anything to spruce up the sound of the performance, because it's only a two piece. So I'm doing whatever I can to make it sound good. I'm mixing it, doing whatever edits I need to do so that the final product is something that we can all be proud of. So I'm definitely into production, any type of production. Um, I like making beats. It's cool. I like writing melodies and lyrics and things like that. That's truly where my heart is at. So it's kind of like 50-50 with the playing music live and also producing for artists.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Very cool. Very cool.
You know.
Well, one of the last things, obviously, I want to make sure that you gotta take the opportunity to plug any new music that your fans can look forward to, or just anything that maybe see anything you have going on the coming up soon. People should look forward to come see you or listen to your stuff. Feel free to kind of plug anything you have going on.
Yeah, I have. Wow, this is new to me. I have a single out called "Where Have You Been." It's on all streaming platforms. It's basically telling the story of I met this girl in New York, and she had the most bubbly personality I had ever witnessed in my life. I'm like, cute girls don't really be this pleasant sometimes. They be a little stuck up and shit, but she was not that way at all.
Mm.
And so that's where the hook came in, where it says, where have you been all my life? I've never seen you. I think I need you. And then that relationship didn't work out when I moved to LA, and so it just so happens that the verses are about one girl, but the hook is about a totally different girl.
Oh wow.
But it made sense for the song. So it took me about 3 years to finish writing it because I wanted to tell a story that was real
Mm.
and true and not something fabricated. So yeah, Where Have You Been is on all streaming platforms. I also have a song, my first single ever, featuring a young man named Akambi. This song is called If I Could. And I wrote this song during the pandemic, right before I moved out here, like a month before I moved out here. And it was basically tells a story of, if we could go back in time um, at any point, would we change anything about ourselves or will we let things remain the same? Um, and so that's a really, really deep dive into, um, you can really deep dive into who you've become, who you were, and if you're okay with it, So those are the two singles I have right now is If I Could by James Calvin and Where Have You Been by James Calvin featuring ZXP. His real name is Isaiah. He's a phenomenal singer out of Harlem. Um, just so you guys know, I'm originally from the Bronx, New York. So a lot of the artists that I work with are from my city. As of now, definitely looking to collaborate and make some great music and great memories in the future with other artists. But yeah, that's my music. If I Could on all streaming platforms, and Where Have You Been by James Calvin on all streaming platforms.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, congrats to you on those releases, man. That's really dope.
Thank you, thank you.
Yeah. Any live performances that we should be aware of?
Yeah. So I don't know when this interview is gonna drop, but next week, January 9th, Spring Street Band. We are at the Delphi in downtown. We are there once a month, I believe now. Usually the first or second week or something like that. But we're at the Delphi for Creative Jazz Fusion. Is a curated event by Jills, who's a popular, promoter out here in Los Angeles. So yeah, January 9th, we'll be at the Delphi. And yeah, everybody pull up. You want to hear some good music? You want to hear me shred a little bit? That's the place to be.
Very cool. I'll try to get this out on the 6th then, so people.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Come on, the 15th. Like, thanks, man.
Is this in yeah, retro? Yeah.
Very cool. Well, James Calvin, man, I appreciate you taking the time, sharing the knowledge, and congrats to you on your success, man. Thanks for being on the show.
Absolutely, I appreciate you too, my brother.
Yeah, man. My pleasure. All right, everybody. Well, that's going to wrap it up here for artists like us. We will catch you guys next time. Peace.
Well, I like to stay low. I bow to what's in my headphones. Chill the night, lay back to the stove. Set my mind on cruise control. Music revolves around my mind like it's an accident.